Ferment for life. Check out this Ferment fan art. I love Ferment. I breathe Ferment. Nothing soothes me more after a long day than staring at this painting and thinking about the eternal love of Phil Lester and Kermit the Frog. Ferment, Ferment, Ferment. I love Ferment. Kocham Dani Phil. Drogi Dani Phil. That means I love Dan and Phil, dear Dan and Phil, in Polish. It's a very beautiful language, as the Lebanese man from Costco said. Find the context yourself. I have other fan art, of course. But you know what? I'll wait for you to see it. You be patient, be patient. I wrote down stuff I want to talk about so I can stay on the topic of Dan and Phil while still getting to go on as many little tangents as I want. Because the great thing about posting raw footage is I can just say whatever I want. And then it's going on there, and if someone else wants to do something with it, like... Do you have any idea how thorough Dan and Phil fans are? They find footage from, 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, that's been, forgotten in the drafts. It's not even that much effort to them, because they've been doing it for 16 years now. Yeah. But one of the points I have is Dan and Phil, they only check Twitter, they only ever use Tumblr to just post promos, and when they were like, send things into Tumblr, it was still a fan Twitter video, and there was still barely anything, and there wasn't my post. I handcrafted this very beautiful ask. I did it from my laptop, and I did hyperlinks to my best Dan and Phil posts with little blurbs on what they were about, and they just ignored it, but they did find Ferment. They did find that Ferment fanfiction, and I'm gonna be real, I skimmed through that video, and I saw I wasn't on it, and then I was like, I don't even want to watch. Ignoring my fucking Ferment! Well, no, Ferment came after the Ferment fic. That Ferment fic is what made the Muppet Joker come back, which if you don't know who he is, you don't need to, because he turned out to be fucking racist. Yeah, I wanted to be his friend. This is a decent-sized Tumblr blog. I want to blog with them. I love blogging. We're gonna have fun. But then he made a bunch of pilgrim hats for Thanksgiving. And for those unaware, the first Thanksgiving was a genocide. The Pilgrims, the Puritans, were genocidal monsters. Why do you think they put them on the anniversary coins? Pilgrims and Trump. And everyone thought, all of those Croker stands got on my ass. They were like, you're overreacting. Is it really that deep? Yes. Anyways, enough of that fucker. My Tumblr is freaking awesome. I post about Dan and Phil all the frickety dickin' time. And when I made that Ferment fan art, someone was like, are you the one who wrote that fic? And I was like, no. I was just so greatly inspired by them. I made a video. Absolutely insane bonkers talking about Dan and Phil's film club. But you have to understand, the reason why I went so fucking crazy, absolutely so crazy, was on, December 12th. I posted... video series idea. I forced Dan and Phil to watch all my favorite shows, and then I paused to go on as many tangents as I want. And then I see that they're making a film club, and I was just like, what the hell? What the hell? Spltlvlhous, always ahead of the curve. Avant-garde. And then I made this, just absolutely insane Tumblr post. Shit. My microphone was off. When did that happen? Me rereading my Tumblr post just got completely obliterated. What about Star Trek, and the X-Files, and Supernatural, and Psych, and Arrested Development, and Back at the Barnyard, and Phineas and Ferb, and Phil of the Future, and Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century, and Archie's Weird Mysteries, and Community, and the 60s Spy-Fi The Avengers, and Farscape? Please, come on, I know everyone is loving the hockey show, but what about me? What about spltlvlhous? What about me and my specific interests? Check out Irina Santor and Piotr Szczepanik. This is Irina Santor.
Myślę o tym, jak na tobie za was wszystkich się odechciało.
freaking love that girl. Yeah. Things I love about Dan and Phil. Dlaczego kocham Dan i Phil? Dlaczego kocham Dan i Phil? Me making my video talking about Film Club, where I basically did an in-person on-the-spot version of that Tumblr post. Wow. It got like, right now it's at like 250 views and 37 likes. The last video I had that got about that much, I think, was my sexy Antifa video, and it got 5 dislikes and 0 likes. So I unlisted it because, like, I don't know, I don't need random right-wing cuckwads finding my political content. It's on my Tumblr. I have an unlisted video tag, which is more of my video journal, personal posts. But my favorite comment had to be, "I love whatever is wrong with you." Did I already say that? I did, but I think it was in my 3-minute video that ended up being muted. So, I'm always saying the same shit. I love it when Dan gets political. I've said this a million bajillion kajillion times. We have something worth more than $1 million bajillion dollars. A gillion jazillion dollars? Daniel Howell. Such a political motherfucker. And every time he gets political, Phil is like, "We just lost all of our followers." And I'm like, me. There's me. I'm here for it. I love when you get political. I love politics. Who gives a shit if everybody else in the world hates it? I like it, so you have to keep doing it. I loved that. I love whatever is wrong with you comment, because that's exactly the energy I want. Like, I know I'm an insane person. I know it's crazy, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna say it anyway, because I want to, and I do whatever I want. I was reading my comments, and so I went to, damn it, the fan, and I was looking at the hidden comments, and there was 2. One of them was calling me a slur, and then the other one was like, "Fuck you, we won." And it was on my sexy Antifa video, and I was like, how the fuck did that video specifically get to a right-wing audience? That was like specifically intended for my Tumblr audience. Which is why I unlisted it, and it's why I got 5 dislikes. And 0 likes. What was going on? "Fuck you, we won." And then I didn't even read the rest of the comment, I just deleted it. Even if you won the election, doesn't mean you'll win in the end, because I'll win. World peace. Because I wanted to check my hidden comments, because sometimes, especially on TikTok, like, people would be like, "Oh my god," just complimenting my art, and then those would get hidden, instead of, like, just the filtered ones I have, because when I first started posting my art, people got so mad that I color pick and paint on top of my, favorite screenshots and stuff, and they were like, "This isn't real art," or they're like, "Color picking is a type of art, but it needs to be disclosed," and I was just like, shut the fuck up, all art is real art, shut the fuck up. And so I just filtered people calling it AI, people calling it not real art, because some people just can't fucking stand that some people got skills. I mean, this is just a good segue back into why I love that Dan is political. Like, I'm never gonna shut up. And, Dan and Phil, they have a big audience. They have to worry about, advertisers. I don't. I just say whatever I want. So I am the woke mob. Thanks to Dan and Phil. And my lesbian Halloween story, which was me talking about going to a lesbian bar on Halloween and just talking to a bunch of random people. And at one point, a drunk girl ran up to me and said, Bernie Sanders, I love you. And I was like, I can't even say anything. I look like Bernie Sanders. But, I mean, he was fighting for civil liberties in the 1960s, so why wouldn't I want to be like that? And, oh, man, I really channeled my inner Dan Owl. Growing up, Phil was always my favorite, but it was because I started watching them when I was, like, 12, and I was, like, still a bit uncomfortable with how much Dan cursed on his channel, but I was on bed rest for 3 months, so I got to him eventually. Yeah, I had a traumatic brain injury when I was 11, which maybe has to do with why I'm like this, but also, you know, autism, bipolar, BPD, freaking awesome sauce. I always love when Phil goes into his anecdotes, and I don't even care if he's actually been making them up, because even if they're one of his many lies, they're true to me, because I do the same thing. I just have a bunch of really weird random anecdotes that just spur to me at the moment. I am a filed. I am Dan and Phil's long lost empreg child. I'm 21. Yeah. They just don't know it. I'm gonna show up to their door one day and go, "Hello, Dan and Phil. I am your filed." And they're gonna be like, "What?" And I'm gonna be like, "Yeah." And they're gonna be like, "You're freaking awesome sauce." Because I'm weird, and part of the reason I was always okay with being weird was because of Dan and Phil. You know, even with all of Dan's internalized issues and self-consciousness and doubt and the fact he was closeted, he was still telling us to be ourselves. They were telling us to be ourselves. They were telling us to be weird, and that if people don't like who we are, then we don't need them. And I also got bullied in high school. I was in choir, and someone was like, "Were you really the token trans person if you weren't in every choir with costume changes?" And I was like, I was, but I got bullied for it. I went to school with a bunch of neo-Nazis and neo-Confederates. But throughout all of it, I had Dan and Phil. My gay dads, always here for me, even though they don't know that I'm their long-lost empreg child. One thing people don't realize, but when people are in my inbox and when people are calling me absolutely insane, I'm like, I'm a hash smoker. I got that ganja, that devil's lettuce. I get it from lesbians, so you know it's freaking good shit. And then I post on Tumblr, I make videos, I'm an in-person storyteller, I just say whatever I want. I woke up at 9 in the morning for my storytelling class today. And then I got there, and we're not meeting today. I read the first sentence of the midweek update, and then I didn't read the part that says we weren't meeting, and I walked to class. It was 23 degrees outside, Fahrenheit, which is 7 degrees Fahrenheit below, no, 9 degrees Fahrenheit below freezing for my non-imperial bitches. U.S. imperialism. TBH though, the weather actually wasn't that bad because it wasn't windy, and when I have energy, the cold weather is exhilarating. It makes me feel like my ancestors in the mountains, in the Finnish mountains, although there's this Tumblr post, and it said, you know, America will have news, and it's like, 5 people bombed today, and Finland will be like, everyone's getting free ice cream, and then someone was like, posting examples of Finland's racism and their government, people trying to go to the alt-right, and I was like, my Finnish blood yearns for the mountains to stop being fucking racist. I've also said this several times, I think Dan and Phil, hello Dan and Phil, if you can hear me, Dan and Phil, if you're out there, you should play No, I'm Not a Human. I watched Markiplier play it, and it's a really good game. I really like it. It's not like skill-based, so, you know, I think that you could play the whole thing, and please play a game in its entirety. Please. Please. I don't care if it takes you as even longer than it took you to play Undertale. Like, most of the games you played in their entirety are puppy playtime. You could also play Deltarune. I was never an Undertale kid, but I have rewatched your Undertale playthrough so many times because it's 10 hours straight of Dan and Phil. I was very, very lonely growing up and most of my life. But after losing my cat and getting lost in the woods, I was like, you know what? I'm alone. But I can either sit here alone and be miserable about it, or I can smoke some weed and make some art. I love this song. Danny Phil are early Dan and Phil are one of my aesthetic inspirations, one of my main ones. The filming from a laptop, I think it's awesome, except I don't edit my videos, so no one to ask for editing tips. And I don't got any. I have lighting tips, I have art tips, I have tips on how to be an insane person. But I don't know. I don't like this idea that we have to always be following the zeitgeist. Everything has to be mainstream, and then things get outdated, and then that makes them bad. No, these things are awesome. And humor-wise, I get a lot of Curtis Connor, Drew Gooden, Danny Gonzalez. I have a video where I talk about the YouTubers I like. And I was a Hetalia fan. When I was 14, I made a U.S. state OC for all 50 states. And I had multiple versions. I was also a Clance truther. Clance was not Canon King. But the moral of story, kocham Danny Phil, I am insane person.